The Hairy Dog, featuring, in order, me, Aubrey, a beautiful woman, Tom, a reprobate and friend, two small bearded men, a hairy dog, and a chestnut tree. We both stood on the tiny balcony, avoiding the hubbub in the main room where, on a table, lay a Japanese spread, sushi, sashimi, gyoza, yakitori, wasabi, pickled cucumbers, perfectly formed delicacies on exquisite black plates. My friend Tom was there, picking away. She had a lazy expression and long dark eyelashes and a honey smile. A turquoise chiffon dress revealed her neck, slender. She had probably had things go her way most of her life, just by showing up. She said, picking lint from my shirt front. Tell me more about yourself. She leant in. Is it true that you're obsessed with hairbrushes? Me? Yes, you, silly. She tapped my chest. Her smile was so beatific, so full of promise, that I became quite weak at the knees. Moreover, she began fiddling with a button on my shirt front. You know, we might discover a certain happiness together, she murmured. Well, yes. I took a step back, feeling the need to collect myself. Anyway, what about hairbrushes? You know, she said, looking straight at me with those huge, deep eyes. Oh, no, no, I know nothing. You got the wrong guy. I trained as an engineer. I'm really very square. She laughed. Everyone knows that people who say they're square are the kinkiest. Then it clicked. Have you been talking to Tom? Tom was my friend, and Tom had brought me. But only a friend like Tom would have told a random woman at a party something so personal and potentially offensive about his invitee. I looked into the room. Tom was still at the food table, albeit now accompanied by two very short, bearded men in check shirts who were watching us while grabbing sushi, which they stuffed directly into their mouths with their fists. Rice and bits of raw tuna had lodged in their beards. Tom caught my eye and raised a glass. Give me your number, said the beautiful woman. I received a message. Aubrey, kiss. I didn't go out much, and not going out much, didn't get invited out much. I lived in my own hermetic way, producing articles and reports on domestic appliances, sometimes sitting at a desk or attending meetings at VEM Engineering. I lived in a place off William Street. The neighborhood seemed just right, 3-story blocks gently ran down an incline. There was a huge chestnut tree, much loved, wise and gnarly, and a bus stop, and a few small shops, and it wasn't too far, and it wasn't too near, and was really quite humdrum. A decade back, one December morning, locals had awoken to find their beloved chestnut tree's long, bare branches festooned with women's underwear. Bras and panties of all colors, but mainly pink, dangled high and low. They swayed prettily in the winter breeze, lace and satin sometimes catching the occasional sunshine most agreeably. London's gallant constabulary duly conducted an investigation, as did the local newspaper. But their research led nowhere, failing to establish if the unusual decorations were the work of an industrious pervert, a prankster, or a frustrated lingerie salesman. Either way, the neighborhood had experienced nothing else noteworthy since. I was walking home from VEM and looked to my side, and I saw that I had a companion, a hairy dog. It seemed very concerned to keep pace with me. The dog was probably a terrier and certainly unkempt, but it was friendly in that unpresumptuous medium-sized dog way. Its tail wagged in genial expectation. After 100 meters, I stopped. So did the hairy dog, and I checked to see if under the wiry hair was a collar. Yes, but no tag. The hairy dog seemed nice enough, and I supposed it might be hungry. I stopped in the tiny shop and got a can of dog food. Then up to my garret and the dog food scooped into a bowl, and another bowl with water. He was a hungry hairy dog and made a fair mess, but most went into his stomach. And then he found a bed on my sofa for an extended nap. A day or two later, Aubrey called me. We are going to meet for spaghetti. Thus, we met in Fratelli's, an Italian trattoria which hasn't changed since it opened in the 30s. The food is pretty lousy, but the place has a familiar atmosphere, and you can feel quite cozy in the little booths. Aubrey ate her spaghetti with incredible speed, sucking the strands into her mouth with such immense skill that I had difficulty keeping up with her. We demolished a half carafe of the house Chianti. "You're very good at this," I commented. "I practiced for hours with string just before coming out," she replied. "I wanted so much to impress you." And she proceeded with lightning speed to suck a strand from her fork into her lips. We then went up to my place. The hairy dog lay on the sofa, which it had fully annexed, and where it snoozed most of the time when it wasn't eating, or losing hair, or chewing one of my shoes. "You need a hairbrush for that dog," commented Aubrey. "I could just clip it." "Let's get a hairbrush." "Aubrey, didn't you once accuse me of being obsessed with hairbrushes?" "I just might have." "Do you think I'm guilty of projection, Sigmund?" she said, coming very near. "Might I require correction?" We descended to the street to get the hairbrush. I could see two small bearded men beside the chestnut tree eating crisps from a gigantic packet of Doritos while apparently searching for something, looking under parked cars and around the tree. Of course, it was the pair from the party. As we got closer, I could see that there were still fragments of sushi and rice in their beards, to which they were adding fragments of crisps. And they were in the same check shirts. "Hi." "Oh, hello," they said simultaneously. "Did you ever hear that story about this tree some years ago?" I asked. "Oh, we don't know anything about that," cut in one of the bearded men rather aggressively, his face turning a little red, while the other looked down at his feet, mumbled, "Wasn't us." Quickly, the first bearded man continued, "Have you seen our dog?" "Bye, hairy dog," I said, as the two bearded men took it away. "We can still get the hairbrush," said Aubrey.